Hi, Shane.
Hello.
Can you introduce yourself?
I can. I'm Shane Buettner. I'm the founder and boss of Intervention Records, and we had so much fun doing our last video. I came back, and I'm doing it again. And this is
Yay.
almost a live video, not quite. So this is really like together we are flying down the freeway, and we're actually working on the car while we're driving it. So this will be fun for everybody.
Cool. So I'm going to ask questions that people submitted. I'm Jessa. Hi, everyone. I'm going to ask questions people submitted.
I wish I could
in
turn
our
the
thread.
camera around.
Not going to
on you.
happen.
Fair enough.
Haha. So I'm just going to start. Okay. First question, because I'm interested in this myself, from Andy Pemrish. I'm really sorry if I pronounce anyone's name wrong. Will you be expanding the Lost 90s series? Any artists you can tell us about?
Yes and no. So absolutely, the 90s are a dear decade to me. That was the decade in which I was in my 20s, having been born in 1970, and there will definitely be more 90s titles, and they'll be great, and they'll be really exciting. And all I could say is I'm not far enough along in any of those projects to announce anything yet, but I can say there's literally not a time at the label when I'm not efforting that decade, so to speak, because as the Lost 90s tag makes clear, it was a pretty dark, decade for vinyl. Most of the vinyl that was released was limited, poor quality. Most of it was ripped from CD quality files, or at least that's a pretty prevalent thing. But, we're absolutely after it, and I'm hopeful that there will be exciting new titles to talk about and announce within the next couple of months.
Next question from Jay Lewis. I'd be interested to hear about how you address the issue of pressing quality. Whether you recognize the poor quality of new vinyl, warps, disc records, pressing defects, etc. Whether you are aware that poor quality could drive fans, new and old, away from the hobby and kill recent momentum, and what steps you take to ensure the highest quality pressing, and whether feedback from customers gets to the top regarding pressing issues, if you can still find anyone to press records with consistency anymore, etc. So much is said, written around the search for analog sources and mastering, but all of that goes out the window if pressing quality suffers.
That's true. If the pressing plant doesn't do its job, everything that happened before that is lost. That was a really long question with a lot of different moving parts, but it's a really important one. Yeah, I have been a voracious consumer of all things on vinyl, and I'm as aware as anybody that too many of the records that are put out in the market today as new records are not up to snuff. I myself have joined some very high-profile private record club type things run by artists and had to leave those clubs because I was getting too many records that were simply unplayable. And it's not a good situation for any of us in this industry, or especially for fans. Records cost real money these days, and there's nothing more disappointing, especially when you get a box set. I mean, what happens when you get a box set and 1 out of 5, 6, or 8 discs is bad? You have to send a whole box set back. It's bad for everybody. So there's a few different ways that I address this and have addressed this from the beginning. I chose RTI for a reason. I'm a consumer myself. I was extremely, I thought that they delivered from the record before I started the label. When I knew that something was pressed at RTI on 180 gram vinyl, the success rate was just ridiculously high. And I would say this, I like the idea they're based in the Los Angeles area, which is where I do almost all of my mastering. It's where my jackets are made at Stoughton. It was very comfortable for me because the pressing plant, not only they press the records, but they package everything. So they really handle that whole process of completing the package that you receive. I wanted to know by name the people who touched the records, packaged the records, and put them together. If there were ever any issues, I wanted to know exactly who to talk to, and I wanted it to be a short plane ride in case I needed to go down there and be eyeball to eyeball with anybody. And I will say this, RTI is just, I couldn't ask for a better partner. To answer the earlier question, which I absolutely love, I am the one-man fulfillment, picking and packing department for Intervention Records. So I handle every direct sale. And so whenever there are issues, I absolutely hear about it. I'm literally the person who answers those emails. So yes, and I will say this, my return rates and defect rates are just vanishingly low. RTI does a great job. At my end, what I dictate to them is that they replace the stampers every 500 records. So there isn't any chance at all that the stampers are approaching anything like the kind of wear where you'd have to take a look at them and make sure the records are still coming out. It's one of the reasons for myself. I never cherry pick. I never ask them to send me specific records for my own collection of my records. I literally, in fact, some of my records, I've given away so many of them, I've just grabbed the most recent one off of the shelf. And I do the same thing for reviewers. I don't have to cherry pick because RTI does such a great job for me. And I think the other thing that I would mention, and I'm probably pushing close to 5 minutes on this, but I think it's worth expanding on, even if it means going to another question. Transparent sourcing. It's one of the things that I believe in. I've done it from the beginning with my label, and what that means is that on my website, on stickers that are on the outside of the package, you can find out exactly who pressed the records, who mastered it, what the mastering source was. I think that we as manufacturers, records and record reissue producers, we owe that to the buying public. And I think over time, people will get a really good idea of who the great pressing plants are and who the not as great pressing plants are, and have a little more ability to hold manufacturers accountable if they know what they're doing and how they're doing it. So that's an important initiative, and starting with Matthew Sweet's girlfriend and the Flamburito brothers, Burrito Deluxe, I have actually gone a step past indicating all the sourcing and info on the stickers. That information will still be on the stickers on the outside of the poly bags around the whole record. The source that's used will now be on the album artwork, so long as I continue to get approvals from the record companies to do it. But it'll actually be a permanent part of the packaging. You'll be able to look at every jacket and tell what source was used. That's not the pressing plant, but it's again, in my case, and I wish more labels would do it, you don't have to look very far, very hard to find out where I press my records and who does it and how, who's doing such a great job with those.
Next question. Bill Wright, will you be releasing Joe Jackson's Big World?
That's a very good question. That's a very interesting project. I do not have a license on that currently, but I do have licenses set up for 3 more great Joe Jackson 80s titles. Body and Soul, Joe's great record, which is another interesting recording project. He recorded it, somewhat similar to Big World. It wasn't with an audience, but it was, recorded mostly live in a large space. And it's a really interesting project. And I also have licenses for Jump and Jive and Beat Crazy. And I believe I'll be able to get to all of those in 2019. And I would say that after that, if we continue to, we've had real good success with Joe's titles. I love Joe's music, which is why I've already done 4 Joe Jackson titles, and there are more on the way. And if that continues, Big World would be the next one on the list, because I think that's a real interesting project. So the answer to that is a very interested maybe.
Another long question from Jay Lewis, or detailed question. Since so many of the Since so much of the vinyl market is focused on reissues or re-releases, have you been in contact with established artists or smaller labels who are still releasing music? A good example would be the new band recently formed by ex-Black Crow Rich Robinson, the Magpie Salute, or Big Head Todd and the Monsters. 2 artists who are still touring and releasing new records. There are many more examples that would qualify, too many to name. I'm curious if new music/new artists will be a focus, as well as continuing to secure access to artists and albums that have been overlooked by the mainstream reissue market.
This is a really good question and an interesting one. So I think in the case of the 2 acts that you named, it seems pretty unlikely to me that they would need a record company to do a release, or if they did, they would know who to reach out to. So in those particular cases, I don't know. But I will say this, over the years, it has continually come up the idea of doing a new release with a new artist. And in a couple of different instances, I've gone pretty far down the road with trying to make that happen. I can't name names right now, but there's one artist I really liked, an album that she did, and it was released on CD. I thought the sound was good. I thought it was a good fit for the label. And the short of it is boy, you know, when you're dealing with artists and management, there can be a lot of moving parts. Now, that being said, I would say the other thing, on the other hand, that has been really successful for the label, you know, my first artist-approved title was Murray Head's Nigel Lived. It might not have been the first released, but that was the first title I actually released by going directly to the artist. And of course, in that case, I met Murray through the great recording engineer Phil Brown, who recorded that album. You know, and that really kicked off. It was, you know, Jess's great idea to start this Artist Approved series to really let fans know that the artists were involved, approve the decisions, approve what we were doing with the reissues and how we've done it. But in each of those cases, there has been a record company involved. Now, that being said, we have actively reached out to a few different artists who control their catalog and tried to do some reissues directly with them. So none of those have come to fruition yet, with the exception of Murray Head, who was gracious enough to license me Nigel Lived. And it was a great project. I got to meet Murray, got to meet Phil Brown, and it was a great project. So there will be many more artist-approved titles, and I would not be surprised at all in the future if there are more instances in which we work directly with an artist, whether that's on new repertoire or existing reissue.
Bill Douglas asks, when will Marshall Crenshaw Field Day be released on CD?
Yes, I get asked that quite a bit. And the answer, again, I wish I could be more definitive about this, but I would say it's possible in the second half of next year. And that actually got held up for, you know, really the most mundane reasons possible. The short of it is that SACDs, there's the group of people that are interested in SACDs are intensely interested. They're also not the biggest group that's out there. That's one difficulty. In this particular case, I think there's enough interest, but what it means is in the overall market, the production and packaging is just a little more complicated than it used to be. People who like SACDs really like the format of the Super Jewel box. And the bottom line is that all of a sudden trying to get Super Jewel boxes is totally crazy. I can't order that through Warner, who's a great partner of mine, and we've done a number of projects together. They don't have the ability to just take the order and get Super Jewel boxes. I've looked at 3 different ways of replicating the discs in one place, buying Super Jewel boxes, having the art and everything done somewhere else and packaging them. And the bottom line is it got really complicated. And if I move forward with that, it looks like it is going to have to be housed in a standard CD jewel box. So that could still happen. The bottom line is that when that many layers of complexity get piled up on top of doing these projects, which is already a lot to deal with, it just ends up going to the back burner. And it's certainly no reflection about how I feel about that project, because I love that record. I love working with Marshall, and I know that people want that on that format, and it'll sound great. So I feel very positive that it'll get done, and I'm really hopeful for the second half of 2019.
And last question, but probably the most important question, from Matt War. Shipping dates for the next Matthew Sweet SACDs?
So, Altered Beast is in the works as we speak, and it's another one. I wish I could say that it was just one of those where everything went as planned, and if that were the case, they would already be out there. There were just a few delays. Again, you know, the whole production process with SACDs is just not quite as straightforward in terms of, we've had the masters for months, but then they've got to be turned into its own set of masters for the CD and the SACD layer of those. That's got to be done by a third party. The artwork goes through its own process. And the short of it is, I can't promise that it's going to be out in November because, we've just slipped into almost the middle of November already. But I'm real hopeful that the Altered Beast SACD will be out in December. And I would think I'd be able to follow up Girlfriend within a couple of months after that. So certainly Q1 of 2019 will complete the SACD series. And I think it's worth mentioning as well, I know people are also anxious for the 180 gram LP on Girlfriend. And there's a lot of great pre-orders. I appreciate all that support. It's really important for the label. We do have jackets. All the print is complete, but it's just another one of those that's, and I treat every one of these projects this way. So it's not like this one was special in that case. But that jacket art with Tuesday Weld, the center labels have the beautiful picture of Tuesday Weld on it. They just had to be perfect. They couldn't be really good. They couldn't even be great. They had to be amazing and knockout quality. And unfortunately, that meant we had to do more work on the jacket art than I had originally anticipated or hoped for. And it took 3 shots at the center labels to get them right. Now, the way that this process works, and the reason that's so detrimental to street dates, is again, RTI, my pressing plant, they do all the final assembly. So they don't just press the records. They press the records, they put them into sleeves, they put the sleeves into the record jackets, they polybag the whole thing, they put stickers on them. And the bottom line is that a pressing plant never wants to press records and not have jackets and have all the materials there to complete it because they can't just store all that stuff. So the queue at RTI, which, and let's face this too right now, once you get into the fall, you're starting to butt up against the holiday rush where everybody's putting in massive orders for box sets. And, I think there's a record store day thing that goes on around Black Friday. There's a lot of activity in the entire vinyl industry. So the queues are a little bit longer. The queue at the pressing plant doesn't even start until all the print materials get completed and are on hand, so RTI knows if they press those records that they can complete the project and get it out the door. So I'm still crossing my fingers for a late December release. I'm really, really crossing my fingers, begging, pleading, and hoping that I deliver Girlfriend to you all by Christmas. If it slips, I don't believe it'll slip far. And I believe that would be January 2019. I can just promise, sonically, it's the best version of Girlfriend anyone's ever heard. It's totally going to be worth the wait. And I can't even kid you. I just got the jackets and saw them for the first time last week. They are just achingly gorgeous. I just was absolutely... Stoughton does such great work for me with the jacket art, and that one really needed to be nailed. It looks better than the original. It's just beautiful. With the film lamination, the heavy stock they print on, it just came out amazing. And just yesterday, I got the final version of the center labels, and again, I was just absolutely ecstatic. So it has been a little bit of a longer wait, but that has really ensured that I'm giving you the archival quality version of this double LP set of Girlfriend that a classic album like that deserves. So thank you all very much for your patience. I'm sorry I've had to exhaust so much of your patience with that, but again, all I can say is it is absolutely going to be worth the wait. So thank you for that, and thanks for holding tight.
Anything else you want to say to the people?
No, just, you know what? I guess if there is, it would be, this last year has been an interesting one. Jess has done an amazing job working with me and building out our direct sales channel. That's been fantastic for a lot of reasons. It really helps the label doing direct sales, and getting, full boat retail to the label means a lot. It's allowed us to increase our production schedule. It's allowed me to make a lot more direct contact with my customers, which I've really, really enjoyed. And that, building that part of the business up has just been fantastic. And, the end of this year ended with just, the unexpected. As many of you know, there was a fire in the suite above the office where all my records are stored, where I do all the picking, packing, and shipping. And that caused the sprinklers came on. They really did their job, and put the fire out. And in doing so, they flooded out my inventory. It ended up not being as bad as I'd initially feared. It has been a totally disruptive process. I only ended up being down as far as direct sales go for about a week and a half. But the process of picking, packing, and shipping has become a lot more laborious. I used to do it all in one place, so I used to be able to just go to the office, run through the process really fast. I've had to set up a makeshift office at home, and so that means in their orders, I have to go to my temporary space, pick the stuff out, then bring it home, and it's. I just appreciate the patience of everybody. I appreciate the words. I got a lot of great words of support via email, via social media. Right after that, we really needed an infusion of cash to make up for some of the shortfalls as direct sales fell off for a while there. And you guys really stepped up for me and for the label. It's just really, really appreciated. I really enjoy all this direct interaction, and I'm really looking forward to a great 2019. And I'm really thankful for the support of everybody.